If you've been dieting for years and finally want success in 2024, I'm going to share with you in this video 3 essential steps to not only lose the weight, but keep it off for good. So throughout the years, you've tried with so many weight loss strategies and failed so many times. Question for you, why is that? If you're like most people, you blame yourself for not being able to stick to the diet. But is that true? What if I told you that it's not your fault? What if I told you that the diet you did, the diet you're doing, is just not the right solution for you? When I speak to people about weight loss, they're actually quite unaware about what the problem is and what's actually missing. And that's not their fault. They just never had it explained to them. In a few minutes, I'll go through the 3 steps you need for weight loss success. But first of all, let's talk about 2 of the big reasons most people fail on their diet. So question for you, what is the main component of most diets? So the simple answer is they provide some steps or some rules to follow to make your food intake as simple as possible while reducing your calories. For example, Slimming World counts sins, the keto diet cuts out carbs, and intermittent fasting gives you constricted time windows where you can eat in the day. All of these reduce your calories to help you into a calorie deficit, which is how weight loss works. The problem is, where there are rules, you're always going to feel boxed in, and that's going to create problems in life. That's why most people wait to create the perfect environment where they can follow the rules as best as possible. For example, waiting until Monday or January, where there's the least possible chance of anything getting in the way. Sometimes you even make short-term sacrifices as well, like not accepting any invites to meals out, cutting out all your favourite foods, or not planning any social activities. Now, the problem is, life is unpredictable, right? And it's always gonna throw curveballs at you. Something is always gonna happen. It could be something simple like you forgot your lunch on the way to work, or the kids were ill, or you had to take the dog to the vet. All these life things that just happen. And when these things do happen, the stress and the overwhelm gets too much. And your brain is like, oh, I can't even think about the diet today. I'll start it again tomorrow. I'll continue it tomorrow. And so you give yourself permission to eat whatever you want and just go completely off the diet. Just think about it for a moment. How many times has this happened to you? And not to mention as well, you never really intended for this diet approach to be a long-term thing. You always had a date in mind where you could stop and relax and enjoy life again. You treat it like a project, a bit like at work, where there's a start and end date. But I hate to break it to you, this approach just doesn't work for diets. Now let's take a quick look at motivation. Most diets start because you're in a place of hate rather than a place of love. Take a look at these 2 statements. I hate myself and I can't live like this anymore. I have no choice but to go on a diet. Each is torture, but at the moment, the diet is the least painful option. Or, I love myself and I want the best for me. I'm willing to make changes going forward because of the massive value it adds to my life. And no other option is more tempting than this. Now, which of those is more compelling? Number 2, right? However, the majority of people are doing their diet based on option 1. They're coming from a place of hate. Even if you're not consciously thinking about it, your diet is based on low self-worth. And this leads to rash decisions, jumping on fad diets to get the weight off as quickly as possible, being emotionally attached to the scale weight and reacting when you don't see the results that you want to see, chopping and changing your approach all the time, and emotionally eating from the stress of it all, but also from depriving yourself of your favorite foods. And as a result of this, you end up seeing really poor results. Whereas option 2, coming from a place of love, leads to not needing to see the weight drop as fast as possible, focusing instead on making changes and being consistent with habits and behaviors, being emotionally rewarded for living in alignment with your values, being able to enjoy foods because you choose to eat them rather than from the cravings you get, being clear about your dream life and what you want, and getting excited because you're moving closer and closer to that, and getting really good results as a consequence of becoming a new person and not wanting to live any other way. So honestly, ask yourself, which of those would you choose? So I'm glad you're still watching. So what are the 3 steps to successful weight loss? Number 1 is simplifying your nutrition and eating and making it as simple to follow as possible. Number 2 is rewiring your brain to fix emotional eating. Number 3 is building unconditional self-worth and learning to love yourself. Now let's unpack step number 1, simplifying your eating. As I mentioned before, most diets usually cause problems and don't work in the long term. Yes, you'll probably lose some weight in the short term, but the problem is maintaining that and keeping the weight off. And that's probably why you're here, right? So let's now answer some questions on how to design the perfect diet. Number 1, how do I get my diet to work long term and fit in with my hectic lifestyle, including holidays, birthdays, and Christmas? The answer is you need an eating pattern that you can follow rather than diet rules that you have to stick to, and something that works with your lifestyle and your weight loss goal. Number 2, how do I know how much to eat that's not complicated and doesn't stress me out? You need a method of judging how much to eat without counting points, without counting calories, without counting sins or weighing food. Number 3, how do I not feel deprived? You simply need a way of eating that doesn't cut out a single food that you enjoy. What happens if I have one of those days where I just don't feel like doing my diet? You need a way of eating that you can follow when you're at your most stressed and you really don't want to be thinking about dieting. And also be really clear on your standards and the lowest you're prepared to drop to when your life gets hard. And the way I do all these things for my clients is to simplify it completely and use your hands and your eyes to judge portion sizes. And of course, this is the way I eat myself as well, because it works so well. And not to show off, but I maintain my body year round just by judging my food with my hands and my eyes. No calorie counting, no intermittent fasting, no cutting out my favorite foods. And this is why it works. It's incredibly simple. Your hands and your eyes go everywhere with you. You don't have to be neurotic over portion sizes and be counting out grains of rice. You can finally let go of food rules. And probably most importantly of all, every food can be included. And this is how you measure. You use your palm size and thickness to measure protein sources. You measure your closed fists to measure vegetable portions. You use your cupped hand to measure carb sources, and you use your thumbs to measure fat sources. And this is how much to have. Start with 3 to 4 meals per day. 4 if you suffer a lot from cravings. So everyone is different, but for a typical woman, I would go for 1 to 1.5 palms of protein in each of your meals. I would go for 2 fists of vegetables in each meal. I'd go for a thumb of fats in each meal. I'd go for a cupped hand of carbs in one of the meals. The other meals I'd stick to just veg. And also, if you do an exercise session, include an extra portion of carbs in your day. And then across the week, include 2 to 3 treats of appropriate portion sizes and one of your favorite meals. And a side note, we are not cutting out carbs. We're just reducing them because they're the easiest thing to reduce. And next, the mindset of how to follow this pattern of eating. So eat like this for 4 weeks and don't check your weight. The focus is getting the habits and consistency right. After 4 weeks, you can check your weight and use the following process. Number 1, if you lost weight, great, continue what you're doing. Number 2, if I stayed the same or put on weight, assess what I was doing, think about one thing I can change, one thing only, and change one thing, and then repeat the 4-week process and weigh yourself again after 4 weeks. If you're stuck for what to change, think about what you could have done better with. Did you have enough protein in each meal? Did you have too many treats across the week? Did you have too many carbs in your meals across the day? Were your portions bigger than suggested? Now, this way of eating is incredibly simple and so gets incredibly consistent and amazing results. The next question people often ask me is, can I have some examples? So I have sorted you out and I've created a free guide on how to eat for long-term weight loss using your hands and your eyes. I put some examples of some meals and explained it fully. If you would like a copy of this guide, I've linked it at the end of this video. Now, I also mentioned steps 2 and 3 for getting long-term weight loss results. Those were rewiring your brain and also learning to love yourself and building unconditional self-worth. Those will be too much for one video, so look out for the next videos and I'll be explaining those going forward as well. And as you've watched to the end, here is a link to download my free eating guide.